suffering, crucifixion, afterwards, robing, soul, scars. This book is a wow. Welcome to P English Literature, a YouTube channel that conveys Amazon, Goodread, blog, and video book reviews coupled with interviews with authors. It's a perfect channel for book lovers, authors, and writers generally. P English Literature, the exact channel for you and me. Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel and to the review of Luca Park's Cars. This book, it's a poetry book and it's made up of 210 pages, and it is so well vexed into emotional issue. It is very fantastic. It is a deep collection of thought-provoking poems. It is philosophical. It is absolutely amazing. The book is actually made up of 5 parts, like I said in my introduction part of the video. The first part spoke about, poems under the theme of suffering, while the second talk about crucifixion, and the third one about afterwards, the fourth one about robing, and the last about soul. I'm a poetry lover, and as much as I love reading poetry, I also like writing poetry. And I love poems that are very deep. I love poems that are extremely profound. I love poems that have the power and the ability to keep me enthralled, to keep me captivated. And I love poems that made me to wondering and seeking meaning. And that's what happened to me while I read through Scarks by Lucas Parks. It is very emotional. It is absolutely fascinating. It is, wholeheartedly impressive. And when I was reading through it, I was like, wow, how did the author come about writing this gruesome, this emotional, this heartfelt, pathetic sort of poems? It is very, very vast. It is absolutely amazing. I have viewed poetry as a language of the soul. It is something that comes from within. And most time when I come across, works that are very deep, works that are extremely philosophical, works that are, very gruesome, I'll be like, wow, this is very, very impressive. This book actually is a collection of wonderful poems, it's a collection of poems that are very resonating, that has to do with, themes of grief, suffering, crucifixion, love, betrayal, regret, etc. And some poems within this collection are very, very negative. Some have a negative tone, some are very desperate. Some can be characterized as the tone of someone who is yearning, who is desperately in need of something, who is in a lot of agony and pain. And when I was reading through some of the poems within this collection, I was very, very intrigued. There are a lot of poems in this book that keep me captivated, that keeps me enthralled until I finish indulging my relatable emotions in it. Most of the works within this collection is absolutely emotional. And, I'm an emotional writer. I love works that are able to pull me in. I love works that have the power to keep me wondering, seeking meaning. And that is what I experienced when I read through Lucas Park's Cars. From the title, one should be able to denote that it's going to be a fantastic work, because scar itself, it's something that takes, emotional on itself, and it's like a permanent mark on the skin, sometimes caused by, the healing of a wound. And again, it can also mean a permanent negative effect of someone's mind caused by a traumatic experience. And when I come about scar, when I first saw the title, I was like, wow, this book is actually going to be one of my fascinating read. And when I read through the description, page of it on Amazon, I was like, wow, it's gonna be absolutely fascinating. And I did not regret reading this book. It is very vast. If you love works that are emotional, if you love poetry that are very deep, like myself, I love works that are deep. I love to keep my reader, to drive my reader in a kind of a way whereby they will be pulled into what they're reading, and they'll be like, wow, because a lot of poems in this connection resonate with quite a lot of themes. Some poems talk about death, about grief, about losses, about yearning. Some tones are very desperate, about marriage issue, and some other things asked to do with quite deep, thought-provoking title that I might not be permitted to make mention in my review as I attempt to keep it spoiler-free. There is also a thing that I find quite exceptional about Ska, and that's the fact that some poems in it can be read interchangeably. Like you can start reading from the first stanza all through to the last stanza, and you can start reading from the last stanza up to the first stanza without any form of alteration and the sort of meaning and the sort of message that the poem seek to communicate in it. And this is actually a method that I'm not too much familiar with, and when I found it here in the book, I was like, wow, it added more charm to the book, and it's absolutely amazing. There's also something I actually admire about the book, and that's the fact that some poems are written in narrative verses. And I actually love poems that are narrative. I love narrative poems whereby you have to tell a story through poetry, and it is very impressive. There's another poem that I find quite intriguing while I read through this book, and that's a poem titled My Son. The tone of this particular poem is very thought-provoking, it is action-driven, it is empathetic, it is heartfelt, it is cathartic. I don't know if there's any sort of other words I can use to describe how amazing the poem in this collection is. I just know that it is very fascinating. The poem depicts that of a miserable narrator. It depicts that of a father who has been looking for a son, or who has been yearning to meet a son for a very long time. And from the poem, I discover that the tone is very desperate. It is longing-like in tone, and the writing, the words, the lyrics, and the stanza of the poem kept me intrigued, and it reminded me of the poems of Koame in Fate in the Dungeon of Doom. The book is absolutely amazing. There are a lot of poems in it which is quite resonating in nature, and if you're a poetry lover, if you're a fan of poetry, if you love poems that are philosophical, if you love reading works that keep you thinking long after you've read it, then I recommend you getting Scars by Lucas Parks. It is absolutely amazing, and there is something born that is message. There's a kind of a message that is communicated through this book, and something that you would even derive some sort of value in it. It is didactic. Some poems are didactic, some poems are biblical in nature, some are spiritual, and some ask quite a lot of things to expound. I also love the fact that most of the poems are written in different font size, dimension, and the imagery is quite interesting. The painting is very amazing. I've not actually come in contact with this sort of thing, but I find it quite impressive. There is actually a lot to say about this book. I don't want to talk about it in entirety. It is absolutely amazing, and I can see from the beginning page of the book that it's a book 1 of 7, and I really look forward to reading the second, the third, fourth, fifth, sixth to the 7th part of this book, Scar. It is very great. Honestly, it is great. So if you're a fan of deep poetry, if you love works that will keep you captivated long after you've read it, then I think you would find enjoyment in Scar. Most of the poems are very empathetic, they are emotional, they have the power to pull you in, and they have the strength to keep you questioning yourself, wanting to get meaning. When I was reading through some poems, I was like, wow, that's too deep. Wow, that's too difficult. Wow, how did he write this poem? What prompted this poem? And that reminded me, when I was reading to some poems within it, I jotted some questions down which I wrote at the back page of the book, and I was looking forward to asking the author if eventually I was able to schedule an author interview with him here on this channel, because most of the poems are very deep. Some are, have the caption of a true scar, and I was looking forward to asking the author to know what actually prompted him writing that deep, thought-provoking, mind-blowing piece of poetry. It is absolutely fascinating. I can just talk about this book to the very end. I feel like reciting some poems in this book, But I don't want to do that. Probably when I have an interview with the author, then I can recite a poem in it, because I just want to leave you and give you a glimpse of what I'm talking about, because the book is actually very deep. It is philosophical and it is absolutely amazing. So if you watched this video to this point and you're yet to click on the subscribe button over there, I want to urge you to please click on the subscribe button over there. Also consider liking this video and sharing it with your friends. And thank you very much for watching my video book review of Luca Park's Scar. It is actually, honestly amazing. And I love it, and I'm recommending it. If you're a poetry lover, if you love poems that are extremely deep, if you love profound poetry, then I'm very sure you're gonna find pleasure reading through Scars. Thank you very much for watching my video book review of Luca Park's Scar. See you in my next video. Goodbye.